Good morning and welcome to Monday. I hope you had a great weekend as we look outside this morning in America, courtesy of EarthCam. Right now, you're waking up with Saranac Lake, New York, Kane, Pennsylvania, Dallas, Texas, and one of my favorite places, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. From our NewsNation headquarters in America's heartland, it's time for news for all Americans. I'm Nick Smith, in for Marky Martin, who is enjoying motherhood, all that good stuff. But guess what? It's time to jump right into it. Let's go.
Begin firing federal employees during this government shutdown.
That's taking place right now, and it's all because of the Democrats. The Democrats are causing the loss of a lot of jobs with their, it's a shutdown. It's their shutdown, not our shutdown. It's their shutdown.
The shutdown of the federal government now entering its second week. More threats of mass firings, continued finger pointing. When will all the stalemate end? And right now, you're looking live at Capitol Hill, where the House is in recess and the Senate preps to vote on another spending bill. Could either side change positions today? We're live in D.C. And breaking overnight, a judge is blocking the deployment of any National Guard troops to Portland. However, hundreds more are being called up for a mission in Chicago. How a series of late-night orders and rulings played out and where it leads the Trump administration's crackdown on immigration and crime. Plus, the cost of your morning coffee is rising like almost no other staple. But that's probably not stopping you from pouring a cup this morning. How people are navigating the bitter cost. But first, the government shutdown stalemate enters its sixth day with more finger pointing over the fourth longest shutdown of the last 45 years. You're looking live at Capitol Hill this morning, where Senate leaders on both sides of the aisle will try to secure votes for their version of a spending bill. The ripple effects of the shutdown are being felt throughout the government. President Trump blaming Democrats as he threatens mass layoffs if talks continue to stall. NewsNation's Tom Dempsey is live at the White House with the latest. Tom, good morning. You and I were talking about this as late as last week, the back and forth, the finger pointing, and still nothing being done.
That's right, Nick. Good morning from the White House. Later this afternoon in the Senate, we expect another round of voting to possibly end the government shutdown. But keep in mind, this new round of voting comes after this past weekend produced really no meaningful negotiations. And now Democrats are accusing Republicans of refusing to talk with them.
Republicans, including Donald Trump, have gone radio silent. And what we've seen is negotiation through deep fake videos, the House canceling votes.
They're not serious. This is not a serious negotiation. They're doing this to get political cover because Chuck Schumer is afraid that he won't win his next reelection bid to the Senate.
Now, today's expected votes in the Senate will mark the fifth attempt to end the government shutdown. Republicans want to keep spending levels where they are until mid-November, while Democrats want to see other provisions added, like an extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Senate Majority Leader John Thune saying discussions over health care can happen once the government reopens. Now, here's the thing, though. Senate Republicans, Nick, still need at least 5 more Senate Democrats to cross the aisle. Only 3 have done so thus far. Nick?
Tom, quick question for you, though. What is the president saying about those mass layoffs in the wake of the shutdown? Because I know that people have been sounding off.
Yeah, that's sort of the personal impact of this government shutdown. Here's the thing. President Donald Trump saying that those federal layoffs have already started. NewsNation asked the president directly about that issue over the weekend, and President Trump took the opportunity to really blame Democrats for the situation.
Taking place right now, and it's all because of the Democrats. The Democrats are causing the loss of a lot of jobs with their, it's a shutdown. It's their shutdown, not our shutdown.
The White House team originally indicated those layoffs would start last week after President Trump met with Russell Vought, the director of the Office of Management and Budget. Vought has been speaking with cabinet secretaries about which agencies to possibly target for cuts. And here's the thing, Nick, aside from those federal layoffs, the furloughs have already started, with NewsNation estimating that 600,000 federal workers have been furloughed thus far. Nick?
600,000, and that number could climb. Tom, thank you so much, live in D.C. Breaking overnight, an 11th hour court ruling stops the deployment of the National Guard into Portland, Oregon from anywhere, dead in its tracks. This after President Trump tried to get an around earlier ruling against deploying Oregon troops in the city. All this going down as federal officers face protests over crime and immigration crackdowns, not just in Portland, but in Chicago as well, which is also on the president's list for National Guard deployment. We have team coverage of the tense battles playing out in the streets and in the courtrooms. Let's start with Brooke Schaefer. Brooke, good morning. A federal judge blocking the feds from sending guards from anywhere into the state of Portland. Now what?
Nick, Sunday's ruling is the second in 2 days, stopping the Trump administration from sending National Guard troops into Portland. The first ruling came on Saturday with the Trump-appointed district judge finding the administration's depiction of Portland as, quote, war-ravaged, not supported by facts, and blocked Oregon National Guard from mobilizing there. Judge Karen Immergut said local law enforcement could handle the protest and federalizing Guard troops would violate state sovereignty. After the judge's initial ruling, National Guard troops from Oregon and Texas were ordered to deploy to Portland, which Immergut says was an attempt to circumvent her earlier order. Portland already dealing with an increased ICE presence. City officials and Oregon's Attorney General celebrated this ruling, arguing the president can't use the military for political purposes. But after this Sunday night ruling, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller posted on X, a district court judge has no conceivable authority whatsoever to restrict the president and commander-in-chief from dispatching members of the U.S. military to defend federal lives and property. He called it one of the most egregious and thunderous violations of constitutional order we have ever seen. President Trump, meantime, over the weekend before this decision, also defended his moves.
Portland is burning to the ground. You have agitators, insurrectionists. All you have to do is look at the television, turn on your television, read your newspapers. It's burning to the ground. The governor, the mayor, the politicians are petrified for their lives.
White House officials say the president was responding to unrest near federal property, and they expect a higher court to uphold his authority. Nick?
Brooke, thank you so much. I want to turn now to Chicago, where Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is also calling out the Trump administration. Take a listen to this.
It is illegal, in fact, to call out the National Guard or to send troops into American cities. The Posse Comitatus Act prohibits that.
During an exclusive interview with NewsNation's Chicago affiliate over the weekend, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is calling out what he says are illegal deployments of the National Guard. Mr. Pritzker's comments come as more than 1,000 people have been arrested by federal agents since the Trump administration launched Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago last month. NewsNation's Mills Hayes is at an ICE detention facility right outside of Chicago. Mills, good morning. You and I were talking about this Friday and again over the weekend. The tensions were high, and I have to ask you, the Trump administration and local officials are continuing to battle over what's happening next. What's happening now in Illinois?
Right, Nick, and a lot of that's playing out over social media. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem calling Chicago a war zone over the weekend, turning up the heat on the war of words between the Trump administration and Illinois elected officials. That now, after months of threatening to send in the National Guard, President Trump confirms he's authorized 300 troops to come to the city. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker already calling this an invasion and posting on X that President Trump is ordering 400 members of the Texas National Guard for deployments in Illinois, Oregon, and other locations. Pritzker calling on Texas Governor Abbott to refuse to coordinate and withdraw his support.
They want to create the pretext for bringing troops in, for making it seem like there is a war zone in Chicago. They're the ones creating that war zone.
But Abbott says Pritzker can either fully enforce protection for federal employees or get out of the way and let Texas Guard do it. Some Chicago officials are already lining up to denounce the deployment of the National Guard, saying that that money could be better used to hire more local police officers who would be here far longer than any federal troops, Nick.
Mills, when we spoke on Friday, you pointed out Secretary Noem was there at that facility where you are right now. She had a camera crew with her. She was looking at the troops. She was looking at the crowds. She claims there are bounties on the heads of immigration officers and agents. What more do you know?
Right, Nick. Homeland Security Secretary Noem says that DHS has intelligence that gangs, cartels, and known terrorist organizations have bounties on the heads of specific immigration officers and agents, $2,000 to kidnap them and $10,000 to kill them. Now, Kristi Noem has not provided any evidence to show this bounties, that these are actually happening, or share what evidence the government has to support those accusations. And NewsNation has not been able to confirm her claims, but federal prosecutors have filed felony assault charges against a woman who was shot by a Border Patrol agent in Chicago Saturday, claiming she drove a car into agents after boxing them in. The woman, who was allegedly carrying a gun at the time, is now in FBI custody, and another man was charged in the incident, which was one of 2 such attacks on Saturday. Hundreds of protesters responded to the scene. A Chicago police supervisor originally told officers not to respond, but they ultimately did help with crowd and traffic control, even being hit by tear gas themselves. Both the National and Illinois Fraternal Order of Police have come out after this report and said that they were shocked and appalled hearing that a CPD supervisor told officers to originally not respond. Nick.
Mills Hayes with the very latest outside of Chicago. Mills, thank you so much. Let's talk now with Republican strategist Angie Wong, Miami GOP committee woman. Ms. Wong, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Tensions are growing between the Trump administration and Illinois officials. J.B. Pritzker, you just heard from him. This as the Pentagon continues to authorize a mission for Illinois National Guard troops to Chicago amid anti-ICE protests, which we have seen there on the screen. Ms. Wong, how do you see this shaking out?
Good morning, Nick, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I've been covering the story for several weeks now, as you guys have. You know, what is actually happening here is that the local leadership in Chicago is actually obstructing federal law enforcement. This is DHS targeting criminal, illegal aliens here in this country, and they're trying to round them up and get them out of this country. But meanwhile, they're being blocked by Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker, and that is what we're seeing. And you have local police being pitted against federal law enforcement. This is not a great look for leadership. I don't know why they both can't both exist, why only one PD can exist in this scenario. They're doing 2 different tasks but they should not be blocking each other. And that's what's really upsetting to see, is that I think some of these local officials, well, they have basically abandoned their oath, right? And there is some federal supremacy laws that trump what they can do. And it's sad that this might actually end up having to go all the way to the courts to resolve.
But Ms. Wong, you've also seen the video, and those who are being taken to the ground seem to be sometimes older in age, and those are not necessarily people who appear to pose a threat, but citizens concerned about ICE in their communities. How do you balance the 2?
Yes, and I've been seeing this around the country as well, not just in Chicago. And I also have to wonder if these are actual protesters. You know, some of them are very violent, maybe not the older ones, but unfortunately, those are the videos that are going viral on social media. But a lot of them are professional agitators. We've been seeing them in New York. We've seen them in L.A., Portland, etc. They go there purposely to cause trouble, to burn flags, to start fights. And it does get violent. So, you know, you have to wonder, why are they there, and why are we still calling them protesters? Are we protecting them under that banner of being a protester, or are they really there to cause trouble and perhaps violence to law enforcement? And if that's the case, then yes, they should be arrested. They should be taken down. Violently, no. But unfortunately, those are the videos that you and I get to see.
Right. Let's shift down to the Lone Star State, getting into the mix also, calling out 400 National Guard troops to Oregon, Illinois, and other states. Governor Abbott saying you can either fully enforce protection for federal employees or get out of the way and let Texas Guard do it. Does he have the authority to override the decisions of other governors?
Well, I think that right now we're just trying to protect law enforcement, whether they're federal or local. And it's really strange to me that you have mayors and governors blocking this. I mean, these are, again, 2 different tasks, right? DHS is targeting removing illegals from these cities. And meanwhile, you have the mayor and governor saying, no, we're going to block this, and we're going to make it very difficult for you to do that. And I think that's becoming very clear to the public. Whether or not there is authority, I think there is, because there is federal authority on this. And it's sad that it's now become a blue state, red state fight. It shouldn't even have to be this way. Law enforcement should be working with each other. In fact, early on when National Guards were being deployed to help ICE agents and help local PD, they don't have arresting powers. They're just there as support for the local PD to give them more manpower, to free up more time so that local PD can go into those neighborhoods and into streets and do their jobs. But right now, it's become very, very politicized.
Ms. Wong, I've got one more question for you in about 30 seconds. Former Illinois Republican Chair Pat Brady says while he's not criticizing ICE, he believes they're not operating like typical law enforcement and are being a little heavy-handed. Does that risk hurting how Americans see their mission?
Well, heavy-handed, but we've seen this in Portland as well, where local PD had to stand down, right? So when it does get violent, where does it go? Are you expecting ICE agents to also just be there to be harassed and to be spat at and to be hurt? No. So they have to do something. Again, all of this is wrapped up in the wrong context. The narrative really is that federal agents are trying to do their job. PDs should do their job, and I think we should not be wrapped up in the local politics of this.
Federal agents deserve to be safe doing their job, as do the residents who are peacefully demonstrating. Ms. Wong, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Israel and Hamas are getting ready to discuss the latest peace proposal on the table, why there's new optimism in the air about the likelihood of a deal being finalized within days. And President Trump gets into a high-stakes election in Virginia, why he and some other critics are calling on the Democratic candidate for Attorney General there to step aside.